let's tackle the age-old question. Which printer should you get for sublimation? An Epson printer or a Sawgrass printer? I want to share with you my personal experience of owning both printers and go through the top considerations you should think about when deciding which printer is best for you. There are a lot of different factors to consider and a lot of things that maybe we don't realize that go into sublimation printing. I started my sublimation journey back in 2021 with an Epson printer. I recently, in the last few months, have upgraded to a Sawgrass printer. Now that I have experience with both printers, I thought I'd be the perfect person to walk you through kind of the pros and cons of both, my personal experience, what I personally recommend, but also empower you to make the decision for which printer is best for you. So first, let's talk about printer setup. The Epson printers are made for just regular printing. Like in your home office or at work, you can have an Epson printer to print all of your needs. We are specifically looking at Ecotank printers because the ink is refillable. Basically, you can get whatever ink bottle you need and put it in the Ecotank printer. So when you buy your printer, it's gonna come with regular ink. You're gonna wanna get rid of that and buy sublimation ink to put in the ink tanks. This will allow you to convert it from a regular printer to a sublimation printer. So what you'll do is you will get your printer out of the box, plug it in, go through all of the setup, whatever, and add your sublimation inks to your printer. When I first started, a lot of the inks you had to use a syringe and get the ink out of the bottle and put it into your printer. And I think some of them are still like that, but more of them are transitioning to just being able to pour the bottle directly into the printer. And that's how you're gonna get it set up. Get your ink installed and then go through the setup process that the actual printer will guide you through in setting it up. Now, a Sawgrass printer is also very simple right out of the box. You're gonna take it out, plug it in, and go through the setup pieces. And the ink is a cartridge, so all you have to do is stick it into the printer, no mess possible, and then again, go through the setup on the screen that it will walk you through step by step to get it connected, to your internet and stuff like that, so it will be ready to use. As far as setup goes, the Sawgrass is a little bit easier, but it's not that the Epson is impossible to set up. They're both relatively simple to get set up right out of the box. The next thing that you need to consider is your printer size. A standard printer will print 8.5 inches wide. So you can print the size of like a regular sheet of copy paper that is 8.5 by 11 inches. But you can also print on a legal size paper that's 8.5 inches by 14. If you're doing smaller sublimation items, like smaller tumblers, mugs, ornaments, things that are small, this standard printer size is great. That's what I started with. My printer was 8.5 by 11 or 8.5 by 14, and I found that I could make a good majority of the things that I wanted to make. But if you want to do things like 30-ounce tumblers, any apparel, bags, socks, things that are bigger, notebooks even, you're gonna want a bigger printer. Now, I started with a smaller printer and then my latest Sawgrass that I upgraded to now can print 13 by 19. And if you're thinking you're gonna do any apparel or stuff like that, you really should go with the bigger print size. So almost all of the Epson Ecotank printers, and you can choose any of them, are gonna print that 8.5 by 11 size paper, and the Sawgrass that does that size is an SG500. If you want the bigger print size, you're gonna need to get specifically the Epson Ecotank 15,000 or the Sawgrass SG1000. It really depends on what your goals are and what you're going to be printing, but I just want you to keep in mind that if you go with the smaller printer, you may find you want the larger one, and then you're buying a second printer. Now, I did sell my Epson Ecotank on Facebook Marketplace, so it's not the end of the world, but it is nice right off the bat to be able to just make every single thing that you could possibly want to make. Now, the bigger printers are obviously a little bit more expensive, so you just kind of have to decide what's going to be best for you, what is the most common project that you're going to be working on. But I do recommend, if you can swing it, just start with the bigger size, and then you're not limited to only working on small projects. The next thing that you really need to consider are the computer settings and getting your computer set up for sublimation. If you go with an Epson printer, you're going to have to put in a lot more effort to set up the computer settings and then tweak them to make sure that they're right. This goes both for the computer settings as well as color correction, which is what I will talk about next. You will need to go in and change a few settings in your computer for your Epson printer. Things like the print speed, the paper type, mirror, color stuff, all of those things in the printer settings. I'm gonna link a tutorial in the top right corner that goes through all of that in detail. What I have found was with my Sawgrass printer, I really don't have to change any computer settings because the Sawgrass printer comes with their printer software, and that will easily take care of all of the settings for you. So if you want something that's more like plug it in, print and go, the Sawgrass is a lot easier. It has the option to change item that you're sublimating, and then it does some things on the back end to make the settings correct. And it is a really, really easy process through the Sawgrass Print Manager. Along with the computer settings, something that you need to consider are the color correction steps needed. Now, a lot of people have really good luck with their Epson printers and their inks, but a lot of people also struggle with getting the colors exactly right. So me personally, I had trouble kind of with my reds and my yellows. They were both a little bit orangey no matter what I tried to change. And it was a lot of effort to print and tweak and test and figure out what settings were going to work for me, because ultimately your printer, your ink in your equipment is going to be a little bit different than mine or somebody else's. So you just have to keep in mind that it will take some time and practice and using some supplies to get those colors properly set if you have an Epson printer. A lot of the settings can be done in your computer settings, but I also recommend looking at where you are designing your designs and printing from. I had the best luck printing from Adobe, Photoshop, or Illustrator because they have a lot more robust system offerings in terms of colors, and that really helped me narrow down the settings for my prints. If you were to print from something like Canva, Microsoft Word, or even Silhouette Studio, you have to rely only on what's available in your computer settings. So it's just something to keep in mind. A lot of times you can install what's called an ICC profile, and this would come from the manufacturer of your ink. So wherever you buy your ink, you can reach out to them and see if they have an ICC profile available if you need some additional support getting those colors correct. Now, I don't have a tutorial on this, but I will link one underneath this video that goes into details about what that is, how to use it, where to get it. If you are using an Epson printer and need a little bit of support, I'll put that tutorial underneath this video. On the flip side, the Sawgrass is literally ready to go. Colors and everything turn out perfectly. I was so happy to know that I literally every time I print a design and press it, the colors have turned out flawless. And I think it's just because the printer is made for sublimation. That's what the company does, and they have perfected kind of the whole system together. So if you are looking for something that is super easy, not a lot of testing and figuring things out on your part, I do think it is worth it to go the Sawgrass route, just to know that everything is taken care of and you really don't have to tweak any of the settings to get perfect colors every single time. So the next thing you need to consider is the software. Now, you will see a lot of people using a lot of different programs for their sublimation, and that is really great. You really can use any program that you can go file print, you can use for your sublimation designs. You can design your own work from scratch in something like Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, or Silhouette Studio, or you can take images that are already made and use something like Canva, Microsoft Word, Google Docs, and just put those images all in there and then go file print. So you really have a lot of different options as far as what you are trying to do as the maker behind your designs. Are you just gonna buy some designs and something like Creative Fabrica, or download some of those designs and then print them? Or are you trying to really make them yourself? That will sort of guide what software you need. If you have an Epson printer, I hands down recommend Adobe Creative Cloud to make and print your designs. Because you have the ability to change the colors and things necessary, it's just a good, robust designing program that will really help the process in your printing and creating your sublimation projects. All of those software options can also be used if you have a Sawgrass printer. I do most of my designing in Adobe Illustrator, and then you can print through the Sawgrass Print Manager. But I do want to share that Sawgrass does have a creative studio that you can access for free and actually design right in there and print. And it's actually pretty cool because you can choose really common sublimation items and create your designs in the right size and print right from there. So if you really want something that is an all-in-one, where you're not getting designs from one place, putting them in another program, and then printing them, you can test out the Sawgrass Creative Studio. And I'm not gonna lie, I haven't used it a whole lot, but it looks like it has a lot of potential, especially for people who don't have access to all of these softwares. It's super simple to create really cute designs all in one place. The next thing we need to consider are startup costs. It is no lie that getting started with sublimation is expensive. It does require a lot of money up front to get your setup going, get your presses, your printers, your supplies, your paper, like all of those things. It is an investment up front to get started. But I will say, if you're looking to start a business and make money selling things that you make, sublimation is a really great way to go. I sell custom sublimation tumblers locally, and I have made my money back easily with these custom tumbler orders. So one option is to choose the printer size that is smaller, because the 8.5 by 11 print size is gonna be less expensive than the 13 by 19. So you could buy that printer, and if you start to feel limited, you can, sell it on Facebook Marketplace and then upgrade to a bigger printer, if that's one way you want to kind of cut down on those startup costs. The Sawgrass printer and ink is more expensive than the Epson printer. You will be spending more money up front if you go with the Sawgrass. I don't want that to be the only decision factor when deciding between your Epson and your Sawgrass, because there is a lot more that goes into it, right? I just went through, computer settings, color correction, and using supplies to test, right? You would be saving money using the Sawgrass versus the Epson, because you wouldn't have to use all of those sublimation supplies and time and energy to get things set up. It's just kind of, it's one piece of the puzzle, and it is, yes, a big piece of the puzzle when you look at price, but I just want you to make sure that you're really looking at it from, a wider lens to make the best decision for you. I get all of my sublimation equipment from Pro World. You can also look at the different bundles that they have. If you're really serious about getting into sublimation, you can save money by going with one of these beginner bundles. I highly recommend the company. Their support is really great, and it's the best place to go. I wasted hundreds of dollars on sublimation supplies, paper, inks, blanks when I was trying to figure out the colors for my Epson printer. So it's just something to consider. If you like that sort of stuff, if you like the testing, if you like that, by all means, that might be the best route for you. But I think a lot of people want the easiest path to success. And in my opinion, that is going with a Sawgrass printer, especially if you are not tech savvy. There is a lot of tech involved and a lot of things to tweak if you're gonna go with the Epson printer. So if you are really into that, maybe Epson is your choice. If you're kind of a little I'm not the most techie person, I don't love that idea. If you want something that's a little bit more get started right away, the easiest path forward, definitely consider going with a Sawgrass printer. The last thing you need to consider is ongoing support. So because the Epson Ecotank printers are not made for sublimation, you don't have access to any help or warranty or support through Epson if you get an Ecotank printer. So if you go that route, because it's less expensive and you can still make amazing sublimation items using an Epson printer, you will be giving up the support options that you can get if you get the Sawgrass printer. So not only did I get my Sawgrass printer from Pro World, so if anything goes wrong, I can actually talk to the company at Pro World about this sublimation printer. Sawgrass themselves have a whole onboarding system that really make it easy to get started. They send you a course, basically step-by-step videos on on how to get your machine set up and to make your first sublimation item. They walk you through everything that you need to know, and it is really well laid out and easy to follow, so absolute beginners can get started with sublimation. The second thing that they offer, which I thought was like really, really cool, is that I signed up for a call with a person, a real person at Sawgrass, and they help make sure that you have sent up your printer properly. And I think that like is actually pretty great that they will be willing to talk to you as an individual person to make sure everything's working. And I think it just shows, you know, the benefits of going with the Sawgrass. You just can't get that support with an Epson. So if that support is something that you want, then definitely go with the Sawgrass. If it's not something that you care about, maybe an Epson will be great for you in that way. I know that choosing a printer and getting invested in sublimation is a big decision. So I hope this video helps you kind of think through what your priorities are and which way is best for you to go. The other thing about sublimation is that you need more than just a printer. You need a bunch of other things to get started with sublimation. So I'm gonna put a video up on your screen right now to give you an overview of all the supplies needed for getting started with sublimation.